Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Today, we are looking at a topic that is, well, honestly, it's massive. And I don't use that word lightly.
No, you really can't. Usually we're talking about a bestseller, something that made a splash. This is a different league.
It's a completely different scale.
Yeah.
So, to get us started, I want to throw a statistic at you, just to frame this.
Okay, I'm ready. Lay it on me.
All right, I want you to picture the entire population of, say, Switzerland.
Okay, got it. Mountains, chocolate, the whole thing.
Now, add the entire population of Denmark to that group.
So
Yeah.
we're talking millions and millions of people, a huge number.
The book we're discussing today has more believers in its authenticity than those two populations combined.
Wow.
We're talking over 150 million copies distributed,
Wow.
more than 100 languages.
And, to give that some cultural weight, the Library of Congress lists it as one of the books that shaped America.
They don't just hand that title out, do they?
No, it's a very, very short list. We're talking about foundational documents.
Right. And we have this quote here from historian Terrell Gibbons that it really drives it home.
What's the quote?
He says, "The Bible alone accepted, the Book of Mormon is by far the most widely printed and circulated book in the history of the Western Hemisphere."
The Bible alone accepted. I mean, that puts it in some very rarefied air.
It does.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the central tension of today's deep dive. Because with a book like that, published by Yale, Penguin, 150 million copies, you expect a certain kind of origin story.
Right. You expect scholars or a wealthy patron, a theological institute. You expect resources.
Or at least a guy who owns a desk.
Exactly. At least a desk and a steady supply of ink.
But the source material we're looking at today paints a completely different picture. It calls the origin miraculous.
And that's not even necessarily a religious claim. Just logistically, on paper, it shouldn't have happened. It's a massive historical paradox.
A global phenomenon from a penniless farmer in the 1820s.
And that's our mission today. And I want to be really clear for you listening. We are not here to analyze the theology inside the book.
Absolutely not. We're leaving the theology at the door.
We're looking at the emergence of the book itself, the logistics, the finances, the constraints. How did this thing, which the source calls a marvel and a wonder, physically come to be?
It's about the container, not the contents.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's unpack this. If it's a paradox, we have to start with the man at the center of it all, Joseph Smith Jr.
The ultimate unlikely candidate.
I mean, if you were a betting person back then, would you have put your money on this guy to produce a world scripture?
Not in a million years. He was born in 1805, so he's in his early 20s when all this is happening, but it's really his circumstances.
Yeah, the financial situation seemed, well, dire feels like an understatement.
Dire is putting it lightly. The source says he was deeply in debt. No financial stability at all.
His family history was just a series of failures, right?
Yeah, business failures, moving constantly, foreclosure. I mean, this was survival mode.
There's a quote from a biographer, Fawn Brody, that stuck with me. She said he was hampered by a meager education and grinding poverty.
That phrase, meager education, is so key.
It doesn't exactly scream author of a complex religious text.
No. In the 19th century, texts like this came from the elite, people who knew Latin and Greek, theologians. The source is explicit.
Mm-hmm.
He had incomplete formal education and no previous writing experience.
Wait, no writing experience at all?
None. No articles, no essays, nothing. Hadn't published a single thing. And yet he's about to produce a text that's double the average size of books from that period.
And that's where the grinding poverty part gets really granular for me. It wasn't just that he couldn't afford to print it.
Right.
The source says he didn't even have the money to buy the paper to write on.
And that detail just grounds it in reality, doesn't it? You have this massive project, and you literally can't afford the stationery.
Someone else had to buy it for him.
Private donations were the only reason he had materials to work with.
So just to recap, a young guy, no money, not much schooling, can't buy paper, and he decides, I'm going to produce a scripture.
It sounds impossible. It completely breaks the pattern of how things like this were created back then.
Okay, so that's the candidate. Now let's get to the task itself. Because this wasn't just a pamphlet he was working on.
No. And this is the section of our analysis I'm calling the speed run, because these numbers are, well, they're frankly baffling.
Lay the numbers on us.
Okay. We are talking about roughly 608 pages of the original manuscript.
Which, for the word count nerds, is 269,510 words.
That is a massive book. It's longer than Moby Dick, longer than Great Expectations.
And he did it in how long?
Approximately 65 working days.
Wait, 65. 6 to 5.
65 days.
That feels incredibly fast. I mean, that's thousands of words every single day.
It is. And here's the kicker. It's not just the speed, it's the method.
Right. He didn't write it himself.
No, she dictated it. He spoke it out loud to scribes.
And the source stresses the conditions, right?
Yes, it says he worked without any outlines, preliminary drafts, working notes, reference materials, or substantive revisions.
Okay, stop there. No notes, no outline.
That's what the historical witnesses claim.
I mean, just trying to tell a coherent story for 5 minutes without rambling. Now, imagine dictating a novel-length book with hundreds of characters and complex histories without a cheat sheet.
And he wouldn't even ask where he left off. He'd stop one day and just pick up the next day with the next sentence. The continuity is staggering.
We have a really powerful witness to this, his wife, Emma Smith.
Yeah, her perspective is vital. She was a scribe. She knew what he was capable of, or not capable of.
And you said what exactly?
She said Joseph could neither write nor dictate a coherent and well-worded letter, let alone dictate a book like the Book of Mormon.
That is quite a review from your spouse. My husband can't even write a good letter.
It's brutally honest, but that's what makes it so credible. You know, she saw it happen, and she still called it a marvel and a wonder. She couldn't explain it.
And she wasn't alone. Oliver Cowdery was the main scribe.
Right. And he described the experience as days never to be forgotten, sitting there writing uninterrupted as Joseph dictated.
So it's just these two guys in a room cranking out this massive text.
Well, that's the common image. But, and this is a big but, it wasn't just the two of them.
It wasn't a solo act.
No, not at all. The source says it required an army of supporters to make it a physical reality.
So who are we talking about here?
Well, you had 6 different scribes in total, and then you had witnesses. The source says 21 people in total saw or handled the golden plates he was translating from.
And that included women, too, which often gets overlooked.
Yes, at least 4 women. It wasn't just a room full of men.
I want to talk about the stakes for these people, because this wasn't like backing a Kickstarter today where you lose $20.
No. Intense is the right word. Let's talk about Martin Harris.
The guy who paid for the printing?
Right. A respected, well-off farmer. He was so convinced that he mortgaged his farm to print the first 5,000 copies.
He bet the farm. Literally.
He literally bet the farm on a book dictated by a guy who couldn't afford paper.
The risk was huge for all of them.
Absolutely. The source says they faced financial ruin, jail, torture, even death. This was their unwavering destiny. They were all in.
And they were betting on a process they were witnessing, not even finished product.
Exactly. The source actually compares it to, like, a modern crowdfunding effort, but driven purely by belief. A 19th century groundswell.
So, okay, the book is finally produced. It's printed. March 1830, grand opening.
Yeah.
And
what happens? It flopped.
It flopped.
Commercially, it was a total failure.
Ouch. After mortgaging the farm, that's brutal.
There's a quote from an early supporter, Joseph Knight, that just sums it up. He said, "The books will not sell for me. Nobody wants them."
Nobody wants them. Wow.
It was devastating. They tried to sell the copyright in Canada just to raise some cash. That failed, too.
So the family was still broke.
They were using the few sales they made just to buy food. They were barely surviving.
Okay, wait. This makes the paradox even weirder. If it was a commercial flop, how are we sitting here talking about 150 million copies?
That's the key. The success didn't come from the market. It didn't hit a bestseller list. It came from what the source calls spiritual abundance.
What does that mean in practical terms?
It means it wasn't about selling a product. It was about spreading a message. Dedicated missionaries catapulted it out of obscurity.
So word of mouth?
Exactly. Person to person, conversion by conversion, it completely bypassed the normal literary market.
It was pure organic growth.
Precisely. And this leads to a really profound insight from, of all people, Henry A. Wallace.
The Vice President of the United States.
Yep, FDR's VP. He was an intellectual, and he analyzed this exact thing.
So what did he have to say about it?
He said the book only reached a small percentage of people at first, but, and this is the key, it affected that small group so powerfully and lastingly that all the people of the United States have been affected.
That's such a powerful idea, the difference between popularity and influence.
Exactly. It wasn't about how many people bought it on day one. It was about how deeply it changed the people who did read it.
You don't need a majority to shape a nation. You just need a deeply committed core.
And that's what happened. The book created a movement, and the movement carried the book.
So let's just recap this journey because it is wild. We start with a poor farmer in his 20s.
Check.
No money, no paper, no formal education.
Check.
He dictates a massive, complex book in about 2 months with no notes.
A statistical anomaly right there.
He gets a group to risk their lives and fortunes to print it. It flops. Nobody wants it.
And yet?
And yet, slowly, person by person, it grows into this text that shapes American history and is published by Yale.
When you lay it out like that, improbable feels like an understatement.
It feels impossible. And you know the craziest part of this whole deep dive for me?
What's that?
We haven't even discussed what the book says.
That's a great point.
We spent this whole time on the logistics, the finances, the paper supply. We haven't quoted a single verse of theology.
And that's really the conclusion of the source material. The marvel is purely about the production, the physical emergence of this thing.
You don't have to believe it's divine to admit the creation story is bizarrely unique.
You can't just wave it away. Believer, skeptic, historian, you have to admit it's an anomaly. The backstory is just so complex.
Which leaves us with a lot to think about. The source ends by saying the circumstances demand deeper inspection and careful consideration, no matter your religious stance.
I think that's the perfect takeaway.
And that's the provocative question we want to leave you with. If the backstory, the container, if you will, is this complex and this hard to explain,
what does that suggest about the content inside?
that's the question. Something to mull over.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the improbable origins of an American scripture. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you next time.